Well, our next speaker, Matthew Traucht, comes to us from the Cultural Landscape Foundation in Washington, D.C. The Cultural Landscape Foundation is a nonprofit organization that provides people with the ability to see, understand, and value landscape architecture and its practitioners in the way many people have learned to do with buildings and their designers. Through its website, lectures, outreach, and publishing, TCLF broadens the support and understanding for cultural landscapes nationwide to help safeguard our priceless heritage for future generations. Matthew manages the Cultural Landscape Foundation's What's Out There program. The goal of this searchable, easy-to-navigate database is to raise public awareness of the rich diversity and interconnectedness of our shared designed landscape heritage. Spanning over 2 centuries of American landscape design, the What's Out There database is a searchable by landscape name, locale, designer, type, and style. So that's really huge for landscape, for the profession. Matthew received his undergraduate degree in cultural anthropology from the University of New Mexico and his master's degree in landscape architecture from the University of Minnesota. He's worked for nonprofit organizations documenting wilderness in the Southwest. He's worked as an archaeologist on prehistoric sites and owned an organic farm near Santa Fe. He joined the Peace Corps and moved to the Gambia, West Africa, and he studied landscape architecture in the Netherlands and Italy and interned with UNESCO, where he documented cultural sites in Kiribati. Please give a warm Newport welcome to Matthew Traucht, who's never been here before.
Thank you all. Thank you very much for that nice welcome. It's a beautiful place. I'm really glad to be here. I wish that my sketchbooks looked a little bit like Ron's. That was just amazing. Those drawings are incredible. So I wanted to start out a little bit just talking about what the Cultural Landscape Foundation does and how you can access our material. And then we'll talk a little bit about Newport through the lens of cultural landscapes, management, documentation, and so forth. So first of all, the Cultural Landscape Foundation looks at historic, vernacular, and ethnographic landscapes as well as designed places all across the nation. And we look at cultural landscapes as the way that we experience place, the way that these places matter to us as national heritage as well as local heritage. So you know that very well when you see people coming here to visit the Gilded Age cottages or the Cliff Walk, or to experience Newport and everything that it has. So these are cultural landscapes all over the world, are very significant. And the cultural landscape, I guess we don't need to go through this since Tanya already covered it, but it's sort of some of the different things that we do as a nonprofit organization. We develop these educational tools and we raise awareness and visibility of the work of landscape architects and also the ephemerality of landscapes, the fact that they evolve and change and that they need stewardship. And this is a big part of what we do at the Cultural Landscape. Okay, let me, like Bob Barker or something. You remember how he had? So yeah, I won't. Okay, so this is, yeah, these are cultural landscapes. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time with that sort of thing. But these are some of our programs that we work on. As Tanya mentioned, we have the What's Out There program, which is the one that I'm most focused on. But all of our programs are completely interrelated. And as we look at one type of design, we start to learn more about designers, and we learn about open space, and we learn about designed landscapes, and then they affect the other programs that we have through our organization. So has anybody seen our website? I just kind of get an idea. A couple people have looked at it. Okay, this is what it looks like. Basically, you can see that we have the ability to navigate within the website to find different types of the material that we have, the different content that we have. And you can look for the What's Out There program on our website, and you can search for more than 1,500 different landscapes that are in our database. And you can search for them by looking at designers' names or types and styles or location. You can find them on a map. There are all different kinds of ways to learn more about landscapes. We also post a lot on social media, Facebook and Twitter. And so our content always directs back to our website, and our website directs to the sites and properties that we have advocated for and that we have documented. So it becomes this feedback loop where people are experiencing a little bit about landscape through our documentation, but then it takes the user then to those different places so that we can learn more about them. So this is the What's Out There page, for instance. And you can see that you can search for different things by different types or different styles of landscape. As I mentioned, you can find them on maps. And we've actually added more landscapes to the Newport area just in the last couple of weeks. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And then you can also find the different designers that we have advocated for, that we've documented. And you can find different biographies about these people and learn about their styles. And then we also have a program called What's Nearby, which if any of you have smartphones in the room, you can click on What's Nearby, and it uses GIS information, and it brings you to that. It brings you to all the different landscapes that are nearby within a 25-mile radius. So it helps you find places to visit when you're going to other places, or even when you're experiencing your own city. You can learn more about them. So another way to learn about the weekend through the What's Out There program and to learn about landscapes is to look at the What's Out There weekend program that we do. And we've done a number of these different weekends where we offer free tours of cultural landscapes, significant landscapes all over the country. And this year we're doing Miami and Richmond, and we're going to be in Los Angeles in November. And then in 2015, we're going to be actually here in Newport. So we're working with a number of different local partners, and we hope to increase that visibility and have a lot more partners on the program. So we'll be here in May, and we hope to be able to experience a lot of what Newport County has to offer. So we're already starting to look at some of these sites that we want to document. That means that we get photographs of these places, that we study the landscape designs, we start to learn more about the designers, about the histories of all those places. And then we put that information out there for other people to find. And so it becomes a tool that students can use, that designers can use, that preservationists can use, that tourists use. Through the What's Out There weekend, we see maybe 1,200 to 1,500 different attendees coming to different tours. The tours are all free, and they're led by experts. And so it's a way that people get a chance to start to learn more about their own cities, as well as people who travel to these weekends. So you can see that we're actually looking at a number of places here in Newport City as well. So how do we see landscapes? Well, here's a local example that I think we're going to see a little bit more of tonight, is this idea of thinking about history and modernity together, and we look at the way that things have changed and the way that things haven't changed. I really think this is a wonderful local project that I'm excited to learn a little bit more about. We also get to learn about landscapes by visiting them and reading interpretive material and getting to understand what is in our midst. And through that visibility, it helps us understand more about the way that things are connected, either through designers or through trends, through styles and types. And we can start to look at some of the different open spaces. This is one of the maps that was provided to me as I was starting to learn a little bit more about Newport. And the American Society of Landscape Architects also talks a lot about the ecosystem services that are provided by open space. And so we understand these view corridors and scenic easements, and we think about creating this network of interconnected spaces within open space. And so it's a multifunction strategy of looking at design that as we learn a little bit more about the Gilded Age Newport, this is for the World Heritage Site application, we also start to study a little bit about the cultural identity of places. And I think in Newport we have that through a number of different lenses. The Gilded Age is definitely one of those, but Newport was a laboratory for landscape architects working on a number of different projects, including a lot of public projects that aren't included in just that Gilded Age vision of what Newport is. We start to see a little bit about cultural landscapes through National Historic Landmark. Within Newport County, we have 23 listings of these National Historic Landmarks, but only 4 of those are significant for landscape architecture. The rest are significant for things like designers of architects, or significant as architecture. And so we would like to see that visibility of what landscape architecture is as a setting for these places, as an envelope, as Ron mentioned, as a way to really think a little bit more about the preservation of open space, because landscape architecture is always concerned with open space, concerned with the surroundings. And so we also see that there are National Register of Historic Places, 122 listings, but only 10 of those are significant in landscape architecture, and we see those here. So we start to think a little bit about how the National Park Service and Secretary of Interior understands cultural landscapes, and we have this idea of conveying its significance in history. They also possess historic integrity, and I think that in Newport we have a lot of that, and some of that is returning through site-sensitive design that we're starting to see. Some of the places, though, that the Cultural Landscape Foundation is looking at, we see that the landscape is not designated, unfortunately. And as landscapes aren't designated, the visibility isn't there. And so we can see some of these places, like St. George School, where the Olmsted firm did 10 drawings, or we can look at a place like Beacon Hill House with over 160 drawings. And so we all are aware, I hope, of the significance of someone like Frederick Olmsted, but also all the other landscape architects who've worked in this area. We start to see that there are all these different trends that are going on, but unfortunately the landscape itself is not valued, or it's not protected through these National Register listings. So the Cultural Landscape Foundation encourages people to think more about the cultural landscapes in our midst, to think about raising that visibility a little bit and making sure that people understand the importance of those places as not just a setting for the houses or for the structures that are there, but also as significant in site design, as significant in community development, and having significance in the economics or the history of a place. So we're starting to look at a lot of these different things, and these are some of the places that we hope to document through our What's Out There program. When I considered Rosecliff, I started to do a little research about the idea about Versailles, and that's what the structure was modeled after, and that's how it's pitched in the National Register. But also think about the landscape too, also very similar between the two. There are those trends that are continuing. And then we also have Horace Trumbauer and Paul Astor and different people who are working in Newport besides the Olmsteds, Christopher Tunnard in this private garden here. And then we have the Cliff Walk, obviously a very important place. Unfortunately, it's not designated a National Register of Historic Places. It is important that it's a National Recreation Trail, but we'd like to see the visibility of this place raised even further. When we start to think about what the Cliff Walk did, we can see that even though it has this historic component as being a vernacular landscape or ethnographic landscape for fishermen, it was also important as the Gilded Age started to change the face of Newport. It still was a democratic place that all of us could access. It maintained that public edge to even those private spaces. It advances really, really quickly. Somehow. Okay. So here we are. But then we also learn a little bit about the sensitivity of that place, and we start to learn about how climate change and how, even though these places are resilient, they're also very sensitive to their surroundings. And so we want to look at different ways that are sensitive to preserving these places. And I had no idea really what I was getting into when I started to study a little bit about Maya Lin and how much of her legacy is here, right? But I think that it is important that now that the design is there, I think it's starting to become more and more loved. It's starting to be something that people understand a little bit. And we start to think about that as site sensitive, and we think about it as scenery and connections and the picturesque view that Olmsted thought was so important while he was here. We think about the intricately detailed designs that are all around Newport, and this idea that nature is towering over mankind. This was Olmsted's writing in 1913, and I think when we start to look around the city of Newport and we think about open space and we think about public access to those open spaces, many of those are still with us today. The same places that he valued then are still alive and well for us to enjoy. And I think it's important to have a strong documentation of those places and to raise the visibility of those so that as the city matures and as we move into the next era, whatever that may be, we can think a little bit more about the legacy of landscape here, and that's what we hope to accomplish with our partnerships here, and hopefully with our participation in the Open Space Forum. So with that, I think it's on 20 minutes.